Beloved chosen one, pause here, not by chance, but by divine design. Before you move any further, allow your spirit a moment of stillness. This is not a place to rush through, but a space to listen. Most will scroll past this message, untouched, unaware, and that is exactly how it must be. For what you're hearing now was never meant for the many. This is a holy interruption orchestrated by the Lord Himself. For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. And if these words are reaching you, piercing through the noise of everyday life, then hear this. You are one of the few. This is not coincidence. This is not the algorithm. This is the voice of the Most High speaking directly to your spirit. The time of passive waiting is over. This is a divine appointment. When God moves, He doesn't wait for you to feel ready. He doesn't knock politely. He enters, He calls, and He commands, and His voice shakes the very core of who you are. Right now, something deeper is stirring inside you. Maybe it feels like unease, a tightening in your chest, a quiet knowing that refuses to leave. That's not anxiety, that's alignment. Your soul recognizes the voice of its creator. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. Maybe you weren't looking for this message, but somehow it found you, because the weight you've carried in life, the heaviness you've never quite been able to explain, is not a burden. It's a signal, a mark, a sign that heaven has placed something greater on your shoulders. And with that mark comes responsibility, not privilege, not applause, but a sacred weight that not every soul is willing to carry. If you are still here, it is not because you are curious, but because, at some point in your life, you have already proven faithful in silence. You have endured without recognition. You have held integrity when no one was watching, and heaven has not overlooked that. Now, as you step forward into this divine role, I invite you to declare your readiness. Type Amen in the comments below as a sign of your acceptance, as a bold statement that you are ready to step into your God-given purpose. And stay with me until the very end, because we'll be closing with a powerful prayer to align your heart with heaven's will. You've been chosen, not because the path is easy, but because your soul has already been trained to carry what lies ahead. Don't scroll past your calling. Chosen one, lean in. There's a reason life has never felt simple for you. A reason why peace, ease, and predictability always seemed like foreign lands. Places others could settle in, but you could only ever pass through. Certain doors shut in your face without explanation. Opportunities dissolved in your hands just when they seemed most secure. And every time you tried to settle for a surface-level life, something deep within you stirred. A restlessness, a quiet rebellion of the soul, whispering, "You were not made for this." While others numbed out and drifted, your discernment stayed sharp. Your spirit remained watchful. You couldn't unsee what you saw, couldn't unknow what your heart already knew. And at times, that felt more like a burden than a gift. But now, hear this. You weren't suffering for nothing. You were being tempered in the silent furnace of divine purpose. There's been an invisible hand on your life, marking you, molding you, measuring your response to pressure no one else could even see. God measured your spirit in moments no one else witnessed. And in this sacred cycle, the Lord is not calling the masses. He is calling only seven souls. Not because they are perfect, but because they are willing to be forged in fire, willing to hold what others drop, willing to answer without needing applause. And chosen one, you're still here. That's no accident. That's your confirmation. This isn't hype. It's holy. Pause and receive the weight of that. Not with fear, but with clarity. Because clarity is costly. It always comes with responsibility. And responsibility, real spiritual responsibility, is heavy. Not everyone is built to carry it, but you were. To whom much is given, much will be required. Luke 12:48. And that explains everything, doesn't it? It explains why your life has never allowed you to settle, why comfort kept rejecting you, why even your still moments were interrupted by the quiet ache of divine restlessness. Because deep down, your soul knew you were being called to more. Not everyone wants to hear that. Many will reject it because it disrupts the illusion of safety. But illusions are not what the Lord builds his kingdom on. He builds it on truth, and truth always shakes what can be shaken. Some of you have already felt that shaking. You've walked through closed doors that made no earthly sense. You've carried burdens in silence, tested by pain with no visible reward. You've watched others take shortcuts, win praise, and live in ease, while you fought battles in private just to keep standing. But heaven saw it. Your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What looked like delay was deep refinement. What seemed like isolation was intentional consecration. You were never abandoned. You were being aligned. Even now, your mind may try to rationalize what you're feeling, but your spirit already knows. This is your moment of recognition. Not everyone is meant to hear this message. That's why it found you, and not them. There is something sacred about now. A spiritual seal is being pressed upon your timeline. That number, 99, is not arbitrary. It is a prophetic marker. It speaks of completion, of fullness, of alignment. The one who leaves the 99 to find the one. Luke 15:4. He has found you. Let this be your seal, not as a trendy gesture, but as a covenant, a sign between your soul and the God who has been walking with you long before you had language for any of this. And here's the truth many avoid. Ease was never meant to be your teacher. The comfort others crave, it would have crushed you. It would have seduced you into smallness. But pressure, resistance, delay, that's what carved depth into you. That's what trained your spirit to hear through noise and see through darkness. And that's what built your capacity. You were crafted to steward sacred responsibility. You were fashioned to walk with responsibility others cannot bear. That's why the storms didn't break you, they built you. Many people misunderstand their journey. They look back at the pain, the struggle, the seasons of silence, and they assume something went wrong. They believe they failed, or worse, that God forgot them. But the truth is far more sacred than that. You were being tested, sharpened, proven. Every delay was a doorway to endurance. That was a sacred audit from the unseen realm. Measuring, preparing, and now the time of revealing has come. This is not the season of hiding. This is not the time to downplay your call. You were not made for the background. You were made to carry fire. But here's the warning that must be spoken. Revelation without responsibility becomes ruin. That's why so few are called into this level. Because to see clearly is to be accountable. To know the truth is to steward it. That's the kind of calling that makes your knees tremble, and still you say yes. So if your soul has been burning quietly, if the question, why me, has followed you your entire life, then now you know. Because heaven trusted you with weight, with testing, with the wilderness, because God knew you would not break, that you would not flee, that even when you felt forgotten, you would remain faithful. That is rare, that is holy, and that is why this message has found you. Not everyone is ready to wake up, but if you're still here, perhaps there's something in this message meant for you. The few set apart not by perfection, but by perseverance. You've been trained in silence, molded in the heat of unseen obedience, and now you are being summoned forward. There are battles you fought that no one saw, burdens you carried that were never yours to begin with, and yet you remained standing, quietly, steadily, faithfully. This is not a story of loud victories or public applause. This is the testimony of one who was measured, not in noise, but in silence. Your responses echoed in eternity, even when earth stayed silent. While others sought validation and comfort, you were assigned something altogether different, a sacred weight, not punishment, a divine entrustment. There were no signs announcing it, no confirmation emails from above, just the quiet, knowing that you were holding space for others, absorbing energies you couldn't explain, bearing tensions that were never formally yours. And still, you moved forward. This is not because you were emotionally immune or unaffected. No, you felt it all. Every disappointment, every letdown, every lonely night when the weight on your chest had no name and no place to rest. And yet, your posture remained upright. You didn't fall apart, not because it was easy, but because the structure inside you was built by God Himself. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. Psalm 18:2. That kind of internal foundation isn't man-made. It isn't taught in books or gained through shallow comfort. It is formed in the crucible of hidden faithfulness. It is refined in wilderness seasons where no one claps and no one notices, but heaven does. You've been walking through this world with a depth that often has no match. People couldn't quite get you, not because you were broken, but because you were deep, and deep calls to deep. Psalm 42:7. Surface-level people couldn't hold your story because your soul was never meant to be explained in small talk or shallow spaces. The isolation you felt wasn't punishment, it was preservation. You were being set apart. You were being trained to recognize pain that wasn't spoken, to carry burdens others didn't even realize they'd offloaded onto you. And you did it, not with fanfare, but with faithfulness. You weren't loud, you weren't theatrical, but you were consistent. And in this world, consistency without applause is one of the rarest forms of strength. Most collapse when they're unseen. Most only stay standing when someone's watching. But you kept showing up when there was nothing to prove, no one to impress, and no one to thank you. That's not just resilience, that's divine calling. And yes, there were moments you questioned it all. Moments where the exhaustion crept in like a slow fog and you thought, why is so much required of me? You looked around and saw others coasting, laughing, drifting through life with a lightness you were never allowed to carry, and it stung. Let's be honest, it hurt. But hear this now, chosen one. Smooth roads are not for those who carry great purpose. Light paths are given to those without heavy assignments. But when heaven places a sacred calling on your life, the road will not be easy. It will test the depth of your roots, and in that testing it will reveal the capacity God placed in you from the very beginning. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. James 1:2-3. That perseverance, your perseverance, did not grow in comfort. It was carved in silence. It was formed when you forgave without receiving an apology, when you offered grace without ever being understood, when you stayed grounded without being held. And the reason, not because you were overlooked, but because you were seen, truly seen, by the only one whose opinion ever truly mattered. You were not invisible, you were trusted to carry what others would drop, trusted to stand when others would flee, trusted to shoulder unseen burdens in a world addicted to shortcuts. That internal confusion you carried at times, that wasn't weakness. It was spiritual intelligence seeking context. Your soul, rich and alive, was searching for soil deep enough to plant its roots, and the low-grade pressure you felt most of your life, It wasn't fear, it wasn't anxiety in the way the world defines it. It was capacity stretching, it was spiritual expansion. You're not falling apart, you're being enlarged. God didn't create you for a light life, He created you for a weighty purpose. And so, while others build platforms, He built your character. While others sought followers, He sought your surrender. While others chased ease, you were being equipped in obscurity. And you know what? That kind of equipping is slow, it's frustrating, it's thankless, but it is holy. Because there will come a time, sooner than you think, when the very stability you forged in your private storms will become a lifeline for others, drowning in public ones. You will not just survive your story, you will become a shelter for others in theirs. And when that moment comes, you won't need a script, you won't need approval, because your authority won't come from titles or stages, it will come from scars, from tested strength, from the hours no one saw and the weight no one understood. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. That's your story, that's your legacy. And now, as the Spirit moves you from hidden to seen, from refined to released, may you carry this truth like fire in your bones. You were never weak. You were being made strong in secret. You were never broken. You were being built for a purpose most could never carry. Each silent victory was etched into eternity's record. The crown is not for the loud, it's for the faithful. So keep standing, keep showing up, keep carrying the call, because what's coming next requires the kind of soul that didn't just survive the fire, but became fire. Have you ever wondered why you had to grow up so fast? Why you could never see the world with the same innocent lens as those around you? Why it felt like your heart was wired to detect what others ignored? And why your soul seemed tuned to a different frequency from an early age? Let me tell you something, chosen one. That was never punishment. That was preparation. You were not thrown into the deep to drown. You were sent there to learn how to breathe where others sink. This wasn't some cosmic unfairness. It was strategic divine training. God doesn't place heavy assignments on fragile foundations. So instead of giving you a soft path, He gave you strength. Instead of allowing you to remain naive, He sharpened your vision. He brought clarity early, because what you're meant to carry can't be built on confusion. You were set apart, not sidelined. You were being built, not broken. Every time you whispered in secret, "Why is this so hard for me?" Every time you saw others pass through life untouched while you were fighting invisible battles, heaven heard it, and heaven had an answer. Because while others buckled under pressure, something in you refused to shatter. Others grew bitter, your heart grew wiser, some became cold, but you kept your fire. Others passed on their pain, you sat with it, wrestled with it, and chose healing. You chose not to become what hurt you. That is evidence of spiritual strength. You didn't just survive, you stayed intact. You preserved your essence. You kept your integrity even when no one validated it. And let me tell you, that quiet endurance is one of the clearest signs that heaven is at work in a soul. The Lord tests the righteous. Psalm 11:5. That testing doesn't look like judgment from men. It looks like endurance without applause. It looks like being forged behind the scenes. It looks like showing up for battles you didn't choose and still declaring, "I will not become the enemy. I will not fold." You see, people with light assignments are introduced to life gently, but those called to carry true weight, they're tested early, tested deeply, tested often, and no, the world won't understand it. The surface will never grasp what's happening in the depths. but God does, and He's been watching all along. Not in the way people watch, not with gossip, not with judgment, not with shallow assumptions. No, this was a divine observation, holy in its intent and eternal in its purpose. You weren't being watched as if you were suspect. You were not being watched like a suspect. You were being trusted like a steward. This is why your life moved to a different rhythm, why closure often slipped through your fingers, why healing didn't come in straight lines, why lessons returned in disguise again and again until something shifted, not outside of you, but within. You weren't being punished, you were being calibrated. Every cycle wasn't random, every loop wasn't meaningless. They were spiritual instruments of refinement. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will Himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. Do you see it now? He was never rushing you. He wasn't ignoring you. He was aligning you, because destiny doesn't come early, it comes on time. And preparation doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in tension. That pressure you kept feeling, it wasn't anxiety, it was stretching, expansion, grace forcing your internal structure to match the magnitude of what's ahead. And yes, it was invisible to others. Your struggles were private, your growth uncelebrated, but that's exactly how deep things grow in the dark. Roots don't form in the spotlight, they form in silence. And the real question heaven was asking in those moments wasn't about performance, it was about your heart. Would you grow resentful, or would you grow wise? Would you collapse, or would you adjust your structure and stand again? Would you lose your voice trying to explain yourself? Or would you trust the God who sees all? Would you throw away your integrity just because no one else noticed? Or would you protect it as sacred even in secret? And chosen one, you passed those tests. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not every time. But you never gave up your essence. You never handed over your core identity in exchange for validation. And that is why the pressure kept coming. It was never about breaking you. It was about proving you. Because your assignment is not light, it is consecrated, set apart, and rare, and only souls with reinforced structure, souls like yours, can hold it without being crushed. So next time you're tempted to call your story too much, or your path too hard, remember, this wasn't random, this was your training ground. While others were being entertained, you were being equipped. While others were being distracted, you were being developed. And while others sought shortcuts, you stayed with the lesson until your soul absorbed its full meaning. This wasn't about the outcome, it was always about your response. That's what heaven was measuring. Would you remain teachable? Would you remain soft-hearted? Would you remain true, especially when no one saw, when no one thanked you, when no one came to help? And you did. You may not have felt it, but you were being silently strengthened, invisibly empowered, shaped by every no, every delay, every repeat of a lesson that hurt but healed. And now you carry something few others do, weight that has been earned through endurance. So no, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're not too late. You've been on time for your assignment all along, and when the fullness of your calling unfolds, it will be clear you were not just built for this, you were made for this. You ever wonder why you just knew things before they happened? Why you could walk into a room and sense something was off, even when everyone else was smiling? Why your spirit would stir days before a shift occurred, before a friendship ended, before a storm broke, before a door closed? That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't overthinking. That was spiritual perception under divine development. God was sharpening you in ways no one else could see. You were being trained to discern, not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. This wasn't imagination, It was intuition, God's alarm system inside you, alerting you long before the external signs appeared. Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Jeremiah 33:3. He was showing you things early, not to scare you, but to prepare you. See, the people who quietly slipped away from your life, the ones who left without closure or explanation. That wasn't abandonment, that was refinement. Heaven was editing your circle. There were frequencies in your environment, energies, connections, even conversations that could not carry the weight of the assignment on your life. And so, they had to go. You didn't lose them. You were led out of alignment with them. Because what God is preparing you for cannot be surrounded by what doesn't carry spiritual compatibility. Some ties weren't broken, they were divinely released. Because where God is taking you, loyalty to the wrong thing becomes sabotage. Now, let's be honest, that kind of pruning doesn't feel holy. It feels like loneliness, but isolation has always been part of God's process. Before Moses led, he wandered. Before Paul preached, he disappeared into the desert, and even Christ himself withdrew often to be alone. Why? Because clarity requires separation. You weren't being punished, you were being refocused. You weren't meant to blend in, you were meant to hear clearly. This process wasn't about perfection, it wasn't about being flawless, it was about consistency under pressure. Heaven wasn't asking, did you always get it right? The question was, did you remain aligned when it didn't make sense? Did you stay faithful in silence? Did you act with integrity when no one was watching and nothing could be gained? And you did, over and over again. Think about it. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed breakthrough, every connection that ended without clarity, none of it was random. You were being observed, not in a human sense, not by people hungry to criticize, but by a higher system, divine, precise, eternal. The way you handled disappointment was part of your preparation. The way you treated people when you had nothing left to give, that was part of the exam. The way you kept walking forward even when every plan fell apart, that was heaven taking note of your foundation. And here's the powerful truth. Fulfilled assignments written in heaven long before earth gave them a name. You kept moving without being told you were on the right track. You stayed the course without applause. You held steady when others would have folded. And that kind of unseen faithfulness, it is holy ground. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. Luke 16:10. That's why the pressure intensified. That's why the silence didn't lift. Because you weren't being broken, you were being elevated. And here's what few understand. Higher levels don't feel lighter at first. They feel heavier. They require more precision, more pruning, more clarity. What used to be tolerable becomes unbearable. What used to be acceptable becomes spiritually unsafe. Why? Because elevation always brings new requirements. So, if you felt more pressure lately, not less, take it as confirmation. You're not going backward. You're stepping into something weightier. This is why your discernment had to be honed so early. This is why you were taught to read the room when no one else noticed the shift. Why you could sense hidden motives behind kind words. Why your instincts felt too sensitive to others, but they saved you more times than they'll ever know. You weren't imagining it. You were being trained, quietly, systematically, without titles, without stages, without instructions, and now you're standing at the edge of something new. Here's the truth. Observation always ends with a decision, and when the watching ends, the activation begins. That's why the confirmation matters right now, because this isn't about theory anymore. This is about release. If you felt prepared in hidden seasons, perhaps this is a time of stepping into purpose. You endured all of that not to merely survive, but to carry something, a calling, a mantle, a responsibility that requires the level of depth, insight and spiritual sensitivity you've developed. That's why it was so hard. Because it had to be real, it had to be tested, it had to be yours. And now, because you've stayed aligned through confusion, because you didn't walk away when it felt unfair, because you learned to see with your spirit when the natural made no sense, you're ready for what's next. This next phase will not feel familiar, it will not look like past seasons, it won't rely on the same rhythms, relationships or resources, because this isn't a repeat. It's a release. God didn't bring you this far to abandon the mission. He didn't sharpen your discernment for decoration. He didn't walk you through seasons of silence so you could return to noise. This is where activation begins. What was once hidden will now become visible. What was once painful will now be purposeful. And what was once confusing will now become confirmation. Let's set the record straight. You were never just unlucky. That phrase, the way people casually throw it around to explain difficulty, it never fit your story. Because what you've walked through wasn't random misfortune, it was design, purpose, precision. You weren't overlooked, you were observed. You weren't forgotten, you were being forged. You've been under review, not by people, not by public opinion, but by a higher system, one that doesn't operate in haste, one that doesn't explain itself with loud signs or flashing signals. No, this system, heaven's own process of refinement, is quiet, meticulous, and sacred. It moves slowly, patiently, and when it finally moves, it moves with authority. Now, let's talk about that number, 7. Not for mysticism, not to sound mysterious, but because in the eyes of the Most High, 7 is the number of completion. It's what marked the final day of creation. On the 7th day, God rested from all his work. Genesis 2:2. Not because he was tired, but because the work was complete. 7 represents the moment when something has been tested from every angle and is still standing. When a soul has endured pressure from every direction and hasn't lost its structure. This is what sets apart the few from the many. And make no mistake, the masses are not excluded from this path. No divine gate is slammed shut in their faces. What happens is more subtle. They quietly disqualify themselves, not from lack of worth, but from lack of willingness, because this path demands more than most are ready to give. You've seen it. People chase comfort, not because they're weak, but because they're wired to avoid pain. They crave quick reassurance, fast answers, and smooth roads that never cost them their peace. And that preference, it's human, but it's also an immediate disqualifier from what we're talking about here, because what you've been called to walk cannot be survived by those who seek ease above everything else. The ones we speak of, the 7, are different, not louder, not showier, but deeper. Their strength is hidden, their endurance invisible, their sacrifice often unrecognized, and that's the point. This level of refinement is never about display, it's about substance. You've felt it your entire life. You sense things others miss. You pick up contradictions, even in smiles. You detect shifts in atmosphere before a single word is spoken. You feel tension before it becomes conflict. You carry emotional data most people don't even register. That's not instability. That's spiritual sensitivity, but let's be honest, that sensitivity makes life heavy. It makes conversations more complex, relationships more layered, the world more intense, because when you feel on that level, nothing is ever just surface. Everything comes with weight. Now add to that a gift even more rare, mental endurance. You don't just feel deeply, you think clearly. You don't crumble when others panic. You don't react when others lose their perspective. You hold steady, not because you aren't feeling it, but because you've been trained to stand in storms. This kind of strength isn't taught in school, it's learned in silence. It's born in nights where no one saw your tears, in days when no one understood your restraint, in moments when the shortcut was available but you chose the hard road. Let's talk about those moments, the ones nobody applauds, times when you could have gotten ahead by compromising just a little, when the world whispered, "Just this once, no one will know." When bitterness would have been justified, when coldness would have been a natural response, when silence could have protected your pride. But you didn't fold, you didn't sell your soul for comfort, you refused to trade integrity for ease. And let's be honest, that cost you. It slowed your journey, it isolated you, it made you feel out of sync with a world that seems to reward shortcuts and punish honesty. But what if I told you that resistance to compromise is exactly why you're still standing? You were never meant to blend in. That's why you felt out of rhythm with what the world calls success. Because what the world rewards, performance, shortcuts, shallow praise, was never what your soul was after. You weren't chasing applause. You were chasing authenticity. You held on to your humanity when it would have been easier to shut down. You chose mercy when the pain said, "Be cruel." You chose to stay tender when the world gave you every reason to go numb. And here's the truth, only a few can do that. Only a few can carry that kind of depth and not drown in it. Only a few can feel everything and still move forward without letting that weight harden them. That's why it's 7, not 70, not 7,000, just 7. Because very few can be that awake in a sleeping world. Very few can remain intact when everything around them is fractured. Very few can resist the pull to become colder, harder, or more self-protective, and instead stay faithful, stay kind, stay honest. You're one of the few, and that's not a crown of pride, it's a mantle of responsibility. Because now that you've passed through the review, you are being positioned for what comes next, not as a reward, but as a release, a commissioning. What you've endured was never pointless. It was preparation. Every heartbreak, every delay, every why me moment. They weren't signs of God's absence, they were proof of your assignment, because the 7 are not chosen at random, they are revealed after the fire, after the pressure, after the silence. And if you're still standing, heart intact, eyes open, integrity preserved, then you're not just surviving, you've completed the test. And now some may sense a shift from preparation to release. There's a certain weight you carry that has no name, but your soul knows it intimately, a kind of knowing that presses on your spirit, a clarity that no one asks for, yet once it arrives cannot be turned off. And if you're honest, you've often wished you didn't see so clearly. You've wished the burden wasn't so heavy, that your convictions weren't so sharp, that your insight didn't go so deep. But this is what happens when heaven places its mark on a life. You are not burdened because you are weak. You are burdened because you are trusted. Let's begin here. To endure mentally without becoming rigid, to remain morally grounded without becoming self-righteous, that is no small thing. That's not the result of willpower alone. That's the fruit of fire-tested faith. It is not a badge of honor you wear. It's a responsibility you carry, and it is not light. Being set apart as one of the few, those rare souls who do not crumble when others look for the exit, means carrying clarity that others avoid at all costs. It means feeling consequences before they manifest. It means recognizing spiritual patterns others are desperate to ignore. It means seeing the truth in its raw, unfiltered form, and still choosing not to look away. And when God gives you sight, real, spiritual sight, it is never meant for comfort. It's meant for stewardship. That's why so few continue this path. Not because they are unloved, but because the weight is real. The burden of discernment, the ache of awareness, The cost of conviction. Most people, without even realizing it, disqualify themselves by choosing ease over endurance. And again, there's no shame in that, but it does mean they are not built for this particular depth. But you didn't crumble, and that matters, not because you walked flawlessly, but because you didn't walk away. Not because you had all the answers, but because, even when the answers escaped you, you kept moving with integrity. You kept listening, kept praying, kept surrendering. But let's be honest about what that process looked like. There was a moment. You remember it. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. No one saw it happen. But deep within your spirit, something broke. Not in weakness, but in surrender. Not as failure, but as transformation. There was a day when you reached the limit. Not emotionally, not physically, but at the core of who you are. A moment where your soul, weary and worn, whispered, "I can't carry this anymore." And that wasn't drama. That wasn't defeat. That was the moment the old structure, the smaller shell of who you used to be, finally gave way to the larger truth of who you were becoming. You didn't know it then, but that collapse was sacred. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. John 12:24. Death always precedes new life. Breaking always precedes true building. And you, chosen one, were not breaking down. You were breaking open. And when all your familiar systems failed, when no comfort worked, when the world around you offered no rescue, something deeper took over. A steadiness not of your own making, a voice not rooted in emotion, but in eternity. You didn't feel powerful. You felt hollow, but in that hollow space, God was present. You weren't instantly filled with passion. You weren't suddenly encouraged. What you felt, if anything, was empty, bare, stripped. And yet, you chose truth anyway. You could have chosen the easy way out. You could have closed your heart, numbed your spirit, handed your disappointment a microphone and built your identity around your wounds. You could have blamed the world, let bitterness define you, or shrunk yourself down to fit a safer story. But you didn't. Even with nothing left in the tank, you remained honest. Even when no one would have blamed you for disconnecting, you stayed present. Even when your structure felt cracked and unstable, you refused to betray your values. And that, right there, that refusal is what makes you one of the few. Not your perfection, not your eloquence, your refusal to collapse inward when no one else would have noticed if you had. This is what the world doesn't see. True strength is not loud. It's not glamorous. It doesn't seek praise. It shows up quietly in midnight prayers no one hears. In boundaries you hold when compromise would be easier. In compassion you offer when anger would feel more justified. That's what this season has been about. Not surface success, not external confirmation, but internal construction. You were being built, not for show, but for service. Not for comfort, but for capacity. And now, you know, this calling isn't for the faint of heart. It demands presence when you're tired. It demands clarity when confusion would be more convenient. It demands a kind of stillness that stands in storms, not because you feel brave, but because you know who holds your foundation. So, yes, your journey has felt different. Yes, the isolation was real. Yes, the emotional weight pressed down in ways no one could see. But don't miss the point. You made it. Not by escaping the process, but by trusting God through it. And in doing so, you became someone this world rarely produces, a soul with both depth and durability, clarity and compassion, truth and tenderness. This is what few can carry, and that is why few are called at this level. But you are still here, still walking, still aligned, not because it's been easy, but because grace met you in the breaking, and faith rose in you in the aftermath. You were never being destroyed, you were being defined. Beloved, if you're still listening now, it is because your spirit has borne witness to something few ever recognize. You were never just surviving, you were being entrusted, you were being forged in silence, not for applause but for assignment, not for ease but for eternal impact. And now, as heaven moves you from hidden refinement into divine activation, this moment becomes more than confirmation. It becomes commissioning. Not in theory, not in vague encouragement, but in tangible, lived expression. Because revelation without application quickly fades into memory. But when revelation meets practice, it becomes legacy. So what now? What does it mean to carry this word into your everyday life? It means you stop disqualifying your quiet strength. You stop calling your stillness a weakness. You stop apologizing for your discernment. The same depth that made life feel heavy is the very depth that now becomes your compass. You walk differently because you are different, so walk with intention. When you enter a room, recognize that your presence shifts the atmosphere, not by volume, but by alignment. Speak less from your emotions and more from your discernment. Speak life, especially when silence feels easier. Ask questions that go beneath the surface. Practice seeing beyond words. Let wisdom, not reaction, shape your conversations, and in your private life, establish altars of discipline. Wake up early, not just for productivity, but for clarity. Give God your first thoughts before the world can steal your attention. Begin to document what you sense in prayer, what you see in dreams, and what you feel in your gut. Keep a spiritual journal. Track the patterns. Heaven is still speaking. Don't let it go undocumented. Begin to filter your choices through purpose, not popularity. What you watch, what you listen to, who you allow access to your time, it all matters now. You're not being called to perfection, but to consistency. You are now living proof that unseen faithfulness builds unshakable foundations. So protect your peace. Guard your discernment. You've been trained to hear frequencies others miss. Don't desensitize that gift through distraction. Cut the noise. Simplify your life. Choose wholeness over attention. When the crowd goes left, let peace guide you right. And finally, serve. But serve from overflow, not exhaustion. You were built to carry fire, but even fire needs fuel. Rest, replenish, invest in sacred spaces, spiritual friendships, wise counsel, honest community. Don't isolate in the name of strength. God builds people, but He also builds through people. Let others into your story, not all, but a few. Chosen ones are never meant to walk completely alone. You are here not just to receive, but to release. To carry weight with wisdom. To walk in rooms not to dominate, but to restore. To hold steady in chaos and bring clarity when others scatter. This is the season where what was hidden in you becomes help for others. This is the moment your endurance becomes someone else's encouragement. And this is the hour where you stop shrinking and start stewarding the call. You've been seen, you've been tested, you've been found faithful. Now walk like someone who was never just meant to survive, but someone who was always destined to lead. Before we end this sacred message, let us enter into a moment of alignment with heaven. You didn't arrive at this word by accident, and the response it pulls from your spirit is not ordinary. This is holy ground, and from that holy place, let us pray together now. Heavenly Father, in the stillness of this moment we come before you, not as strangers, but as vessels you have been shaping in silence. Lord, you have seen every step, every tear, every unseen sacrifice. You have watched, not as a distant observer, but as a loving potter, forming purpose out of pressure, beauty out of brokenness. And now we acknowledge what you have whispered to our souls. We were not being cast away, we were being called deeper. Father, we thank you for every closed door that was really a form of protection, for every silence that was sacred shaping, for every hidden battle that forged unshakable foundations within us. We recognize now that you were never absent. You were refining us for what only a few can carry. And today we say yes, not a passive yes, not a fearful yes, but a bold, convicted yes. Yes to the weight, yes to the wilderness, yes to the wisdom that comes only through the fire. Holy Spirit, align our hearts with heaven. Let us no longer shrink from the responsibility, nor disguise the depth you have placed within us. Awaken within us the courage to live fully aware, fully obedient, fully faithful to what we have been entrusted with. Remove all confusion that has masqueraded as fear. Remove every lie that told us we were too much, too sensitive, too complicated. We declare now that our clarity is not a curse, it is a call. Lord, for the ones listening who have felt misunderstood their whole lives, give them peace that surpasses understanding. For the ones who have kept showing up in silence, grant them supernatural endurance. For the ones who have carried unseen weights, let them feel the presence of the one who has always carried them. Wrap them now in your assurance that what they have survived was not the end, but the entrance. We lift up every soul that was not broken but built. Every spirit that endured review without recognition. Every heart that held integrity in the dark. Let these be the ones who walk forward not with pride, but with sacred responsibility. Let these be the ones who restore what has been fractured, who rebuild where there has been ruin, who lead not from ego, but from eternal assignment. Father, for the remnant, the rare, the refined, bless them. Seal this word in their hearts. Let it become legacy. And when the pressure comes again, remind them they were chosen not because it was easy, but because it was holy. We thank you for trusting us, for not letting us settle, for never giving up on what you planted in us. And now, let this be the moment where heaven shifts, where observation ends, where activation begins. Let this prayer become the sound that echoes in the spirit realm and confirms we are ready. Not perfect, but willing. Not flawless, but faithful. In the mighty, holy, unshakable name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you for staying to the very end, chosen one. If this word ignited something deep within you, declare it. Share your heart in the comments. Speak your agreement and let others find light in your testimony. Don't forget to subscribe for more spirit-led messages that cut through the noise and awaken destiny. Your next confirmation may be just one word away. You were never just meant to survive, you were built to lead. And what comes next requires the kind of soul that didn't just endure the flame, but emerged as the flame bearer. Until next time, stay aligned, stay anchored, and stay aflame.